So we have Eddie Kramer here. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're doing wonderful, Eddie, and it's good. This is the first time you've actually been in with us.
First time in a while, actually.
Yeah.
First time on the morning show ever.
Yeah.
So,
I think you did the radio show with Mike and I one time.
I did.
And he did the evening show with us.
Oh, did
Yes,
okay.
I did.
So you've had some of the torture, but never the morning torture.
Actually, I think I found out on the evening show, if I remember, that Amanda and I went to the same college or university or same area.
Maybe.
Long, long time ago.
Yeah.
She went way before I did, obviously.
Obviously,
clearly.
obviously, yeah. I mean,
100%.
obviously. So Eddie, you and I have known each other a long time. I met you when you were in the banking industry before you became the property appraiser. You had a very successful career in banking, and you're in a political position now. So you got to tell me what made you think, oh, okay, I'm going to go into a political position and a government position from banking. I mean, you're a numbers guy, so it kind of makes sense with the position you went after, but kind of explain like that conversation with the family. Hey, I'm going to do this.
Well, I was a banker for 35 years, right? And 35 years in banking is a long time, especially after 2008 through 2012. Mm-hmm. And so after that, through that period of time, and we actually sold Prosperity Bank to Ameris Bank. And I had a 3-year non-compete, and actually it was ending up, I was the Southeastern Regional President for Ameris, but I wanted to do something different. Mm-hmm. And I'd always been very keenly interested in politics and government, even in college. I grew up in the Panhandle, and I will say something that's probably sacrilege, but in college I was the president of the Young Democrats. But in the Panhandle of Florida, Democrats were,
that's
they
the way
were
it was.
highly conservative, and I think they were called
Blue Dogs.
Blue Dogs.
We were Blue Dogs.
Yeah, the times of Dempsey Barron and Bob Sykes, and it was conservative. So I've always had an interest. So when we sold the bank, I was still young, and I felt like I wanted to do something else. I wanted to be in St. Johns County. I've always believed that there's no reason government cannot operate as efficiently as a private sector. There's just no reason. And, I thought my skills translated to property appraiser's office, because in banking, obviously lending, values and that sort of thing are part of it. And so it seemed interesting. And I said, I'd like to do that. I'd like to stay here for the rest of my life. And I think this would be a good way to do this.
All right. Yeah. When you did your first, are you on your third term?
I'm in my third term, yeah. First year, third term.
Third term. When you did the first one, did you run unopposed then? Because you've run unopposed, I think, the last couple times.
I was unopposed the first term. Initially, I had opposition, but the opposition left the race before qualifying. Okay. So I've been very fortunate to be unopposed 2 times.
Well, you keep
times.
Doing a great job like you're doing. It's going to we're not looking at that one.
Exactly.
Yeah, and property appraiser, constitutional officers, we're more ministerial. We're carrying out duties defined by the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And while, yes, it's political and yes, you have to run, but the way we do our job should be apolitical, right? Mm-hmm. Because valuation, exemption, property taxes, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, it doesn't matter. We all have to participate in that system, so it should be as apolitical as possible.
All right. And I got a lot of questions because I think the trim statements come out this next month, right?
Actually this week.
They come out this week.
This Friday,
okay.
August 15th,
okay.
We'll mail trim notices. Trim notices, that's the most important document a property owner will get on their property in relation to property taxes. So they go in the mail Friday, August 15th, and they'll be available on our website the same day. So if you are not going to the mailbox on Saturday morning, you can look at the website on Friday and see your trim notice.
And the trim notice kind of tells you it's a projection of next year and where you're at this year. You kind of don't really know what the millage is set at from the Board of County Commissioners until September. So it is a projection. It's not a hard number. And I think a lot of people, when they get the trim notice, think, oh, that's exactly what's going to be. But it is a projection. Have there been challenging years of making that projection? It sounds like we're staying fairly flat this go round. But have there been other years where it's a little harder for you in your time as property appraisers?
Not particularly, because TRIM stands for Truth in Millage, which was the statutes that put that in place. And the TRIM is actually a notice of proposed taxes. So what we do, and our job is to create the tax roll for the taxing authorities. We have basically finished that by June 1st, and it goes into the Department of Revenue for review, evaluation, and approval. It's usually approved by the end of June. And so the values are set, the exemptions are set. The taxing authorities approve their proposed millage. In my time in the office, that proposed millage has not changed between proposal and final millage. So if it changes, the property tax bill could be slightly different. But when you're talking about changing, fractions or mills, it wouldn't be a significant difference. The biggest challenge we get a lot of time is that when the tax bill comes, the tax bill includes non-ad valorem charges like garbage, solid waste, recycle, CDD fees. Those are not on the TRIM notice because they are not ad valorem or according to value. So that's sometimes a challenge when the person actually gets the bill.
And
They say, wait, it's $3,000 more than my TRIM. Well, look at the bottom
details.
line. Yeah, you've got garbage, solid waste, recycle, and oh, by the way, you have a CDD fee, which is added to there. But generally, the taxing authorities are pretty consistent. Once they set the millages or proposed millages, they've generally stayed the same.
And ad valorem, for people that aren't aware of it, that is what is associated with your property taxes. You set the value of the property, and then the millage kind of does its own thing.
Right.
What if someone wants to challenge what your property appraiser? Is there a process of how to do that? Like you say their house is worth $500,000, and they're like, wait, my house is only worth $300,000. Is there a process of how to possibly do that? And how does that look through your office?
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually two ways you can challenge that. First of all, through the year, from January 1st to June 1st, we are in a working tax roll. So we are doing the valuation of properties, and the only thing our office does is just market value. Right, every year. Assessed value and taxable value are calculated based on exemptions and caps. So we choose to publish our working tax roll live on our website. So any day during that period, if you go to our website and you look, you're going to see where we're working on your value. During that period of time, you can call our office and say, hey, I think you've got this wrong. There's something about my house you don't know, and we're going to send an appraiser out to look at it then. The most important thing in my mind about the TRIM notice is it triggers the Florida Taxpayer Bill of Rights. So if you haven't looked at the website through that period of time, when TRIM is mailed August 15th, it triggers a 25-day period. And in that 25-day period, you can reach out and request a conference with the property appraiser's office. Now, again, you can do that anytime during the year with us, but during that 25-day period, we sit down with you, our appraiser sit down with you, or it could be an exemption as well. And if we can't come to an agreement, then you have the right, and we encourage you to file a petition with the Value Adjustment Board. And the Value Adjustment Board is an independent board. They're independent of our office, and it's made up of, I think, 2 county commissioners, a school board member, and 2 citizens members. And then what happens then, if it goes to a Value Adjustment Board hearing, they're magistrates, independent magistrates. One is an appraiser, who's a value magistrate. The other is an attorney, who is an exemption and classified use magistrate. So you have the right to file that petition. You are scheduled a hearing date, and you appear before the magistrate with our office, and we present to the magistrate why we think we're right, and you present to the magistrate why you think you're right. The magistrate decides, and life goes on. If the magistrate decides in your favor, we correct the roll and we move on. So that's the important part of TRIM. So the only time that you can get that independent review is if you file during that 25-day period.
Okay.
All right. St. Johns County's went through a tremendous amount of growth since you've been in your position. How do you keep up with that growth? You have homes that are not actually don't have people living in them, and how do you manage that growth along with the ebbs and flows of the market? I mean, to me, it sounds like just an absolute roller coaster where you guys are going through with that. I mean, there has to be a margin of error in where you're at with your just market evaluation.
Yeah, an appraisal, we always said in the banking business, appraisal is an opinion of value. And in mass appraisal, what we do for the tax roll, it is still, it's an opinion of value, but it's statistically driven. We, for our processes, we have mass amounts of data that we use to evaluate or create a value or an approximation of value for tax purposes. Managing the growth, we've been able to improve on processes. There's some very logical processes in place. Our office is the official ownership recorder of the county. So every time something's filed in the clerk of the court's office that affects ownership, deeds, marriages, divorces, deaths, plats, they come to us. We record it, we map it, we assign a tax ID to it. So it's traceable since inception. So we identify the properties that way. Every sale that occurs comes through our office. We qualify that sale or disqualify that sale and use that data for our valuation. Any ordinances and that sort of thing. So there's a logical process that we keep up with the growth. Permits. If you pull a permit for a new home, if you pull a permit for a pool, that comes to us. We log that in and get it onto the tax roll. New subdivision plats. So keeping up with the growth is just managing that information that comes to us. And we've been really effective in using technology as opposed to adding people to manage that. We use high-resolution aerial photography. We use high-resolution street level imagery. Our interface to the clerk's office and the building department is electronic, so we get that all over through PDF files, et cetera. As it relates to valuation, Florida is known as a market value state, so we're required by statute to value every property at just market value as of January 1st of the tax year. Just market value is based on sales. And in our county, we are so fortunate from a value standpoint, we have a lot of sales. We process, depending on the year, between 12,000 and 16,000 sales of residential property per year. So the sales are telling us approximations of value. And even more specific, if it's in a particular neighborhood, if it has a pool, if it has 4 bedrooms as opposed to 3, the sales data is telling us that. So that data is put into the mass appraisal system and modeled down till we can value a bedroom, a bathroom, a pool, et cetera. So, while the just market value fluctuates every year, and it is still an approximation, we've generally been able to be pretty close into what you would find if you went out and had an independent appraiser appraise your property. Of course, for tax purposes, to me and you, it's always too high.
Of course.
When I get ready to sell it, it's always too low, and I get that, right? Because I pay taxes here too, so I understand that.
Okay, I'm going to put on my real estate hat here a little bit because this has happened to me a couple times with appraisals. I have a buyer who wants to buy this house. The seller has made an improvement that has not been permitted, like they've enclosed or added on something, and it's not been permitted. And all of a sudden now the appraisal that you have is completely different than now the square footage that how do you manage that when those type of situations, because it's really a pain for the realtor side when the other side doesn't disclose that to you, and now your appraisal is way low and now you have financing issues. But how does it affect you when that happens? I know it's a real pain for the real estate side.
Well, if an improvement is added that's not permitted, we are generally unable to pick that up. That can have a negative impact on the taxpayer because of the caps, right? So if you're homesteaded and that hasn't been added into your value, you may be losing some Save Our Homes portability on that. We sometimes can find that because of change detection system we use. So we use change detection software that uses our aerial photography and overlays the sketches. So every property in the county, when we add it to the tax roll, we sketch it. So we draw out the walls. If you go to our website, you'll see like a floor plan. So each year we use our aerial photography, our sketches, and our maps, and we overlay that. So if square footage has been added that's outside of a tolerance, then the appraiser is going to check that property. If something's been added, then we're going to add it to the tax roll. We also use that because many times we have somebody who demolishes something, and we want to take that off the tax roll. Now, you should get a demolition permit, but sometimes you don't, and so we can catch that and get that off the tax roll. But generally, unless it's added, rooftop area or like a paved area, if you didn't permit it, we're not going to get it. On the sale, either the buyer, the seller, or the realtor is going to reach out to us. And at that point, we will go out, inspect, and add it to the roll.
We have Eddie Kramer, property appraiser, with us, and you able to catch your breath. Now I'm going to hit you with the fun stuff. It's not that much fun.
It's all fun.
Yeah. Two big things that's always out there is homestead exemption. When can people apply for that homestead exemption? And now you can do it online, correct?
Correct.
And what does homestead exemption do for you?
So I'm glad you went in that direction. Homestead exemption is the most important exemption to taxation you can get in Florida. One, it's very generous at a $50,000 reduction to your assessed value. Second, it puts the 3% cap on your assessed value. Nice. And a lot of people don't really appreciate that. It's not just a 3% cap. It's the lesser of 3% or the increase in the consumer price index. Okay. And in my 9 years, only one time has the 3% actually applied. Other times, the other 8 years, the consumer price index was less than 3%. And many years it was like 1.25 and 1.3. So that's the first part. It's going to reduce your taxes and save you money. To qualify for homestead exemption, you have to own the property as of January 1st. It has to be your primary residence, and you can't receive any residency-based tax benefit anywhere else in the United States. Okay. You can apply in our office or you can apply online. We average about 12,000 new homestead exemption applications each year in the county. About 65% of those come in online, which is a great benefit to the taxpayer and also to our office. Statutorily, the deadline to apply for homestead exemption is March 1st. Okay. The statute goes on to say that the property appraiser may accept late file applications for good cause. So in my opinion, good cause is you qualified for it January 1st, but you didn't get in by March 1st and apply. So you have in our office till the end of trim, which is 25 days from the mailing. This year it's September 9th. So if you get into our office or get online before September 9th, then if you qualified, we're going to get you that exemption for this year. If you didn't qualify, we'll get it for you next year if you qualify. Okay. So that's why the trim period is also so important. You look at that trim notice and you say, oh, man, I qualify for homestead, but I didn't apply. We can still get that for you. Okay. After September 9th, I can't. I'm statutorily prohibited. If I approved it and added to the tax roll, the Department of Revenue would send it back to me and say, no, you can't do that. Okay. So that's another reason trim's so important. The other really important thing about homestead is Florida has other exemptions. They have low-income senior exemptions, civilian disability exemptions, veterans exemptions. You have to have homestead to get those. So I call homestead the gateway exemption to get to the others.
How would you research whether someone has one of those exemptions?
Like a veterans exemption well, when someone applies for homestead, our application, we ask questions, right? Okay. Were you in the military? Were you a veteran? Do you have any sort of disability? Or are you a senior? And so to get a senior exemption, it's income-based. Okay. And so we will get a tax return. The veterans exemptions, we rely on the Veterans Administration. So if you qualify for a veterans exemption, you have a letter from the VA that has a rating, and we use that letter to apply the exemption. Okay. If you know you have a rating and you don't have the letter, we work very well with the local Veterans office. They do a great job. We'll just reach out to them, and usually the same day, they'll have the rating letter back to us, and we'll apply that exemption.
And that the veterans letter is important in a lot of different things.
Yeah,
at Veterans Village, that's our go-to on where it's at. All right, so there's been a lot of scuttlebutt coming out of Tallahassee. DeSantis is floating around. Okay, we're going to do away with property taxes and some of those things. I'm not really see how it helps people like Blake who doesn't have a house yet, because it's going to have to increase sales tax. I mean, it's going to have to make sales tax go up to keep our quality of life where it needs to be. It's almost a forced fair tax situation. So I'm kind of caught in the middle because as somebody who pays a lot of property taxes, it can be helpful to me, but it also could hurt the next generation. Is there anything your office, because you got to keep your finger on that pulse quite a bit. Is there anything in your office that you're doing just to kind of keep aware of where you're at and what's happening coming out of Tallahassee?
Yeah, we actively monitor legislation, proposed legislation, potential legislation. Mm-hmm. In addition, our Association of Property Appraisers lobby for certain regulation or statutory changes. We also do our best to educate legislators on the impact of something that's proposed. Mm-hmm. So yes, we monitor it, because the first thing we would have to do if there's a change, and we have to do, if there's a change in exemption, anything like that, or an additional exemption, we have to reprogram our systems mm-hmm. to accommodate that. And we have to do that. We have about a 9-month window to do that, because if they pass it in March, if it's effective the same year, then we have to get really busy on that. So we do monitor that. Okay. Property taxes in Florida they're constitutional, so any change has to go on the ballot. But there also has not been any significant changes in property taxation since 2002. Mm-hmm. But values in Florida have gone up dramatically since mm-hmm. 2002. So are we probably due for some reform to property taxes? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But I think one thing we all have to keep in mind is that there's 3 things about property taxes and that we all need to keep in mind. First of all, it's the most transparent tax we pay. Mm-hmm. Okay, you can see it anytime on the website. You can go on the website and estimate it. You get a trim notice. Yep. You get a time to appeal. You get a tax bill, right? So it's very transparent, as opposed to a sales tax, which is not transparent. Mm-hmm. How much sales tax did you pay last year? Yeah. I have no idea. No. I don't even know how much I paid yesterday, so it's not transparent. The second thing about property taxation, it's maybe the only form of taxation that someone cannot avoid. Yeah. Right? The third thing is
people try.
They try, but eventually, the tax collector is going to, sell a deed.
Then their house is on the court.
Exactly. So it's very difficult to evade. And the last thing, and to me is even more important, because I'm one who believes we are governed better when we're governed locally, is that property taxes are local, mm-hmm. right? So if we are uncomfortable with taxation locally, we get to go to the ballot every 2 years. Mm-hmm. If you move that taxation to, say, sales tax base or something else, that's not necessarily local. Mm-hmm. That ends up in Tallahassee unless it's a local option. And I just think everybody, as we have this discussion, should think that through.
Yeah. No, and I feel this. I feel the exact same way with that. I want us to have control of our education. I want us to have control of our Absolutely. Taxation. I want us to have control of our spending. That's we really don't have a tax problem. We have a spending problem. And that's one of the things that we have to really keep a hold of. All right, tangible tax, doesn't fall under you, does it?
Absolutely.
It does fall under you.
Tangible personal property tax.
Explain tangible tax, because I think that's one of the more confusing taxes, especially for new business owners, is tangible tax. And explain what that is and how that valuation comes to be.
So our office appraises all real property in the county every year. We do that based on sales market cost. Mm-hmm. We also appraise all tangible personal property tax. That's done by a tax return. Mm-hmm. So if you open a business or you have a business in St. Johns County, you are required to file a tangible personal property tax return. And that is a tax on your business assets, mm-hmm. your furniture, your fixtures, your machinery for production, your computers, your telephone system, and you fill out a tangible personal property tax return, and you file that with the office. That's every business that gets a business license is required to file that. Now, there is a $25,000 exemption. So assets up to $25,000 are not taxable. Many small businesses don't hit that threshold. But it's very important for the small businesses to know you have to file time to get the exemption. So if you don't file, we're required to estimate your assets and you'll get a tax bill. But if you file and you're below $25,000, we exempt you and you don't file again. So that's very important. Those are due by April 1st. You can do that online as well, or you can mail it to the office either will. But it's equally as important because by the same token, if you don't file, we're going to estimate and send you a trim notice. The tax collector is going to send you a tax bill. And if you don't pay, they're not going to sell a deed on your property, but the tax collector is going to send an agent out to get your property. So it's the same thing. That's the tangible personal property tax is misunderstood. And it is just as important to a business. Our office is proactive. We mail cards every year. We get all the business license from the tax collector. If we don't get a tax return, our tangible staff goes into the field, knocks on the door, say, hey, you've got to file this return. Here's the return. You're probably going to be exempt, because you're a line service business or something like that. But it's very important that you file it.
And the reason I ask that is as if there's landlords out there watching, the people that are renting from you, if they're not paying their tangible taxes, the tax collector can actually put a lien on that property, even if they've moved out, and that property owner is going to have to pay for the business if they did not get paid. Before you're able to rent it again to the next person, you're going to have to pay that tangible tax. So it's one of those things that's out there that people, unless you're actually in business, a lot of people that sign the front of checks should know about tangible taxes.
Absolutely. And even if you have a short-term rental, right, you have to file a tangible personal property tax return, right? So usually your furniture is less than $25,000, so you're going to be exempt and you don't have to file again, but you have to file that first time. And that's really important. And, the tangible personal property tax it's worthy of discussion because you pay sales tax when you buy the equipment.
Yep.
You're paying property tax on your facility, right? And you're paying income tax on your revenue. But then you're paying taxes again every year on what you've already paid sales tax on. So, you could easily say, and this is where I get to the property tax reform, this whole one size fits all, doesn't really work. Because you could say eliminate tangible personal property tax. In St. Johns County, it has little or no impact because of the sheer size of our tax roll. In Putnam County, the story is totally different because you have the paper mill, the power plant. They're the largest taxpayer, and it is on tangible personal property. So there is no one size fits all to this taxations, eliminate or change or whatever.
Eddie, we've taken up a lot of your time. Anything you want to get out there? You got trims coming out this week, which is a huge deal for you. Anything you want to get out there to the public that we haven't talked about yet?
No, the most important thing is the trim. You're going to get your trim notice. There's going to be information in the trim notice about the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. There's going to be contact information in that trim notice. Look at that trim notice. If you have any questions, call our office. We're open 8:30 to 5 Monday through Friday, 827-5500, or you can dial 827-5520. That's my phone. We will return your phone call. We return all phone calls every business day. We return all our emails the same day. Please, if you have questions, don't wait till the end of trim. If there's an exemption you didn't get, let us know so we can get it for you. If you think your value is wrong, let us know so we can have an appraiser take a look at that. Communicate with our office. There's no reason not to make sure that we're in agreement and that you're getting everything you're entitled to.
Excellent.
I have a quick question on if you want to contest the evaluation and you want to go through that hearing process. What's the success rate of that?
Interestingly enough, and I'll start without the success rate. So we assess, this year we'll assess about 185,000 parcels. Last year it was 170-something thousand parcels. Okay. We had less than 50 petitions that actually went to VAB. Okay. That are individual taxpayers. Now, there are tax agents that are a different story, agents that file blanket petitions, et cetera.
All right.
And honestly, the success rate is not very high for the taxpayer, but the reason is if the taxpayer's right, we're never going to go to VAB. I was talking to my appraisal staff this week about, how confident are you in your numbers? And he said, if I'm not confident with my value, I'm not going to VAB. And that's exactly what I want to hear from that. If it's an exemption issue, that's statutory. We don't have a lot of room if you didn't qualify. So, generally we have taken care of it before you would have to go to VAB.
Okay.
Excellent.
My job is if you qualify for an exemption to give it to you. And if you don't, to make sure you don't get it.
You don't get a bonus for denying exemptions.
We don't get a bonus. We don't get a bonus for assessment. And that's a good point. If I could just say quickly, property appraisers are independent. We have no oversight from any taxing authority. Our budgets are approved by the Florida Department of Revenue. So there's no influence locally over us performing our job. And that's very important to know. We are actually the advocate for the property owner in the county. I am the advocate for the property owner for their valuation to make sure they pay no more, no less than they should, but that they get any exemption or relief from property taxation that they're entitled to.